Well, actually, Elvis loved the song. That was when he and Priscilla were having their problems, which I met her recently, and she told me that Elvis loved that song, and he had sung that to her on the day of their divorce.
Everyone thinks this song is about love. Soft, romantic, timeless. But what if I told you it was actually a goodbye? A goodbye that shattered a partnership. A goodbye that triggered a lawsuit. A goodbye that cost Dolly Parton $1 million. She didn't write it in anger. She didn't write it for revenge. She wrote it to walk away. And what happened next changed her life forever. But listen closely, because the real story behind this song is far darker than anyone expected. Before the wigs, before the legend, before the world knew her name, Dolly Parton belonged to someone else's spotlight. Porter Wagoner was country music royalty, and his weekly TV show wasn't just popular, it was everything. Millions watched every week, and Dolly became the star everyone noticed. On camera, they were perfect, smiling, singing, harmonizing. But off camera, the pressure was relentless. Same schedule, same control, same expectations. Dolly once said it felt like a marriage, not the romantic kind, the exhausting kind. Her voice made him money, her presence built his brand, and slowly, she realized something terrifying. If she stayed, she might never become herself. And that's when the tension started building. Because wanting freedom is one thing, but asking for it, that's where everything exploded. By the early 1970s, the pressure wasn't subtle anymore. It was constant. Every song, every appearance, every decision. Nothing moved without approval. Dolly wasn't just tired, she was shrinking. She felt it every time she stepped on stage. Her voice was there. Her smile was there. But her future? That felt locked behind someone else's door. People around her noticed the tension. Whispers backstage, awkward silences between takes. Porter expected loyalty, total loyalty. After all, he gave her the platform. He gave her the exposure. He gave her the break everyone dreams of. But Dolly wanted something dangerous. Independence. And in country music back then, that was almost unheard of. Walking away from a hit TV show wasn't brave. It was career suicide. Industry insiders warned her. You'll disappear. You'll regret this. You won't survive without him. But listen to this. Dolly didn't leave quietly. She didn't storm out. She didn't burn bridges. Instead, she decided to do something no one expected. She would explain her goodbye with a song, not a diss, not an accusation, a thank you, a farewell wrapped in kindness, a message so gentle, people wouldn't even realize what it really meant. But here's the twist. What she thought was graceful would be seen as betrayal, and the song she was about to write would change everything, because this wasn't just her exit, it was the beginning of a war she never wanted. And next, you'll hear how a simple melody turned into one of the most misunderstood songs in music history. Late one night, Dolly sat alone. No cameras, no audience, no pressure to perform, just honesty. She knew leaving would break hearts. She knew it would look ungrateful, and she knew one man would feel it more than anyone. So instead of arguing, instead of explaining herself over and over, she chose music. That's when I Will Always Love You was born. And here's what most people still get wrong. This was never a romantic song. It wasn't about passion. It wasn't about desire. It was closure. Every line was gentle on purpose. No blame, no bitterness, just one clear message. I have to go, but I'll always be grateful. She wrote it fast, almost too fast, like the words had been waiting for years. In Dolly's mind, this song was a gift. A soft landing, a respectful goodbye to a chapter that shaped her life. But listen to this. What feels loving to one person can feel humiliating to another. Because when the song was released, the world didn't hear thank you. They heard finality. They heard independence. They heard separation. And for Porter, that was unbearable. The song climbed the charts. Number 1, massive success. And instead of healing the wound, it poured salt into it, because now her goodbye wasn't private. It was public, sung on radios, played everywhere, celebrated without him. And that's when everything turned cold. Because behind the scenes, the kindness she thought she showed was being rewritten as betrayal. And what came next wasn't sadness. It wasn't disappointment. It was revenge. And the price he demanded from her would almost destroy everything she had built. But wait, what he did next was far worse than anyone imagined. The song was everywhere, on the radio, on stage, on top of the charts, and while the world celebrated, something dark was happening behind closed doors. Porter didn't see a thank you. He saw control slipping away. And then it happened. Papers were filed, lawyers got involved, and suddenly it wasn't personal anymore. It was legal. Dolly was being sued. For $1 million. Let that sink in. At the time, she didn't have that kind of money, not even close. This wasn't a warning. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a message. You don't leave like that. You don't succeed without consequences. The industry watched quietly. Some sided with him, others stayed silent. And Dolly? She was terrified. Not just of losing money, but of losing everything she'd worked for. Her independence suddenly felt fragile. Her freedom came with a receipt. She could have fought back, dragged it out, turned it ugly. But listen to this. She didn't. She agreed to pay. Installment by installment. Dollar by dollar. Because to her, this wasn't about pride. It was about peace. Still, the damage was done. The man who once lifted her up was now trying to pull her back down. And the scariest part? This lawsuit didn't just hurt financially, it sent a message to everyone watching. Leave the wrong way. And this is what happens. But here's where the story twists again. Because, instead of breaking her, this moment did something unexpected. It hardened her resolve. And what she did next would prove that no price tag could stop her rise. But wait. What followed this lawsuit shocked the entire industry. After the lawsuit, something shifted. Not outside, inside. Dolly paid the money, kept her head down, and walked forward anyway. No public feud, no angry interviews, no revenge tour. Just focus. She poured everything into her solo career. Every ounce of fear, every scar from that breakup, and slowly, something incredible happened. The industry realized she didn't need anyone's permission anymore. Her voice stood on its own. Her songs carried her name, not someone else's. Hit after hit followed. Not because she was rebellious, but because she was authentic. And here's the part most people miss. That $1 million loss, it bought her something priceless. Control. Control over her music. Control over her image. Control over her future. She never badmouthed Porter. Never rewrote history to make herself look like a victim. Instead, she did something rare. She acknowledged the truth. He gave her the break of a lifetime, and she paid the price to grow beyond it. That balance, gratitude without submission, is what made her untouchable. But here's where it gets even crazier. Years later, that same goodbye song would return, bigger, stronger, and more powerful than ever before. And this time, it wouldn't just define her freedom, it would cement her legacy forever. Because what happened next turned a painful farewell into one of the most iconic moments in music history. Years passed. The pain faded. The debt was paid. And that goodbye song? It never left. Then something unexpected happened. A new generation discovered it. Different voice, different moment, same words. And suddenly, I Will Always Love You wasn't just a farewell anymore. It became universal. Loss, growth, letting go. Everything Dolly felt back then, the fear, the courage, the quiet strength, all of it was finally understood. And here's the irony. The song that once caused a lawsuit now stood as proof she made the right choice, because no one could control it anymore. No one could claim ownership over her voice. The world didn't hear betrayal. They heard truth. And Dolly, she never rewrote the past. She still gave credit, still acknowledged the man who helped her rise, but she never apologized for leaving, because she learned something powerful. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away, even if it costs you everything. That $1 million, it wasn't a punishment, it was tuition. The price of becoming who she was always meant to be, and that's why this story still matters, because behind every overnight success, there's usually a painful goodbye no one talks about. And the reason this hits so hard? Because deep down, we've all had a moment like that. So here's the question. Would you pay the price of freedom if it meant becoming yourself? That song was never just a hit. It was a decision, a quiet line in the sand. Dolly Parton didn't lose $1 million. She invested it in her voice, in her future, in her freedom. Most people only hear the melody. They miss the sacrifice behind it, because walking away from comfort is easy to praise, but terrifying to actually do. Dolly could have stayed safe, stayed protected, stayed small. Instead, she chose uncertainty and paid the price without bitterness. That's why this story still resonates. Because it isn't really about music, it's about courage. About knowing when gratitude turns into limitation and having the strength to leave anyway. So the next time you hear that song, listen closer. It's not a love song. It's a farewell. And sometimes the most expensive goodbyes are the ones that make you who you were always meant to be. If this story made you see that song differently, leave a comment with the word freedom. And if you want more untold stories like this, stories where success comes with a hidden cost, subscribe now. Because the truth behind fame is almost never as beautiful as the melody.